the first time I've track chaired, and this is really my dream team of speakers today. We're going to go through them one at a time. But Jeff Patton was hugely influential to me when I first started out with Kanban, coming from a design perspective and writing an excellent pragmatic approach to Kanban. So I'm thrilled to have Jeff back to give us his reflections and insights on what's changed and how he views things now. So everyone, let's welcome Jeff Patton.
All right, we haven't, perfect, it's on. I've got some disappointing news. I'm lucky enough to be asked to be here, and my intention was to talk about what I've seen as Kanban myths and misconceptions, and, well, I've gone sideways. I wrote an outline, wrote the abstract, and then a funny thing happened while at the conference and on the way to the conference, and frankly, at the end of the day, I don't care much about Kanban myths. Now, I'll start there, but if anybody's heard me talk before, I'm a poster child for do as I say, not as I do. What was the, Benjamin, what did you call this? This competent, skilled incompetence. Damn you. Now I have a name for my disorder. But on the way here, I talked to Tom, and Tom said, well, what are the 3 points you're trying to make? So, look, if I don't finish on time, really there's 3 points I need to make. And the rest, and you can go. After this, the rest is just going to be discussion. The thing that drives me freaking nuts is that we keep talking about value, and it's hypothetical. We just don't know. And what we should be doing with all the process that we're using, be it Kanban or whatever your favorite flavor is learning faster, a lot faster. And if there's one big wrong hypothesis that I see in the use of most processes, is that the beginning and the end of the process isn't focused around value. The process doesn't include how we find opportunities for value, and it doesn't end with measuring where the value came from. So let's dig in. This is an article I wrote in 2008. Well, actually I posted this article online in 2009, but I wrote it, and through a long, unimportant, interesting series of events, it never got published, so I just dropped it online. I've been giving the article out to people saying, oh, I'm trying to learn about Kanban, there's not much out there. I said, well, I wrote this thing, try this, use this will help you. It tells you at least what I know. And then I finally dropped it out online. My story started by running into Carl Scotland at a Scrum gathering in 2007, and he was kind of sheepish and apologetic for doing Scrum wrong, but it's working. And I said, well, it's interesting because I'm hearing a lot of other people that are doing it wrong, and it's working. And well, what are you doing? Well, I don't have sprints anymore, and gosh, and well, I knew other people that were doing this, and Carl, I think, had just changed to working at Yahoo, and I knew other people at Yahoo, so I talked with my friend Joe Arnold at Yahoo, and he said, oh yeah, we're doing this boundaryless, no time box iteration thing, and that's working pretty well, and here's how we're doing it. And who you should really talk to is Aaron Sanders, who is in Sunnyvale. He's doing it, and it's working well. So I talked to a bunch of people. I went back and looked at what Arlo Belshi was doing with naked planning, and well, there's a lot of people that kind of twisted things to focus on, well, we're good enough at what we're doing, we just want to focus on solving the problem. And what I was trying to do in the article, especially with this preamble about mom and apple pie and buffet, is to talk about Kanban as part of the big agile buffet. That Kanban is an agile thing too. It's not an agile thing. Well, today it's not an agile, well, it's something else. The article got some traction. That's a Google search from yesterday, and that particular article, after the ad is third behind the Wikipedia entries, and people still seem to link to it and look at it. I don't know if that makes it necessarily popular, but there it is. And when I look at just, it has some interesting spikes, but when I look at the trending from Google Analytics, it just keeps getting more people reading it. So this leads to an interesting conundrum for me. People think I know an awful lot about Kanban. Pie charts are good for illustrating things, but the truth is what I actually know about Kanban and what people think I know is different. And I'll backfit some of this stuff. And my intention coming here today was to sort of bust myths. A lot of people come to me with their assumptions about Kanban, and although I don't know much, I know enough to know that, well, they've got it wrong. And, hey, has anybody ever seen the television show Mythbusters? Does anybody think I look like that Adam Savage guy? Okay? So, some of you may have known me before I was 20 pounds heavier than I am now. My beard is getting a little bit wider, but there was a time when every freaking week I was getting stopped in the airport. Are you Adam Savage? And no, I'm not Adam Savage. And I remember looking down the eyes of a child at Disneyland who was just so sad that I wasn't Adam Savage. And but I'm going to capitalize on that right now. And I want to talk about some myths, but I want to say, I don't know, I don't see the resemblance. It's completely different. So let's see if we can count up to 10, and let's see how far I get, and I'm going to push the big points here. Now, when I'm talking to traditional agile people, their concern is if we start doing Kanban, that people will stop collaborating. It looks like we're laying the process out left to right. We're going to go right back to doing waterfall. And, well, the truth is exactly opposite, that Kanban improves collaboration. The first time I started using this with clients were in the late 2000s, and we set up this particular board. We came up with this interesting convention that well, did you know that in every packet of sticky notes you get two shapes? You get a square and you get a diamond for free. And we would tilt the diamonds to indicate that, well, these were buffers, that work wasn't happening here, and the squares where work was happening. And we built this sort of long, elaborate Kanban board. And we probably did what David Anderson suggested. We separated all the people. There's two work in progress columns there. This is a big stock trading application. There's work in progress there for front-end developers and back-end developers. And the problem we were trying to solve is we had a large testing community. That was important. And they were saying, hey, we can't start testing until the development is done. And I said, well, I think you can, and we talk about it. We know you can. So we put columns out there to the right for testing and what they need to do for testing. And they said, well, there's automated testing, and then there's scripting and executing manual testing. And we laid out all these columns, long process for doing this. And the double lines there is a limit to work. We allowed for, as Benjamin pointed out, we allowed for 5 items in progress. You can see clearly there's 6. Well, we started doing this way, and what happened was developers would have these interesting conversations with testers. The testers would say, hey, I see that's coming now. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I can actually start writing my tests sooner now. And we didn't, tasks or bits of work that people were doing that we wanted to make visible could be in different places on the row. The importance for us of the board was to limit the amount of work we were taking on at any one time. There's a lot more stories in the sprint than that. They were still doing time box development. But we needed to not take on so much at one time, and we wanted to have people working together sooner, getting started sooner. And this solved communication problems. It helped people see what was going on and didn't have that problem. The other thing that happened with this same particular team is, well, the people upstream, the people that were doing detailed analysis and UI design and things like that said, well, why do they get to have all the fun? We have a lot of crap to do, and we're just managing it other ways. We'll build a Kanban board also, except but we have to be different, so they used a diamond shape, they used it for work in progress, not for the other thing. But then they had a long process for getting ready, and then they threw up all the work they had. Threw up is the correct word here. They put all the work they had on the wall and said, crap, we have a lot in progress. This is a problem. And, well, actually the diamonds were waiting. There's a lot of work queued up, waiting. Because there's no WIP limit for the people on the product owner side or customer side, sadly. And in particular, we kind of had to wind around the corner, that long column of orange stickies. There was only one person that could do that work. And pushing any more work forward to her would be a problem. And at the end of the day, I said, gosh, we really have to, you know what, we could help you. And she said, well, I didn't know that. And that helped. At the end of the day, this team got good. They got really good. And their new improved super Kanban board, they said, you know, we're all talking so much. We're all doing stuff at the same time. You know, all these columns are just confusing. Let's just have one for to do, in progress, and done, and we'll mix all of our tasks together. And their process eventually evolved to this simple 3-column board. But it was a long evolution, and it was a function of doing all this collaboration. Now let's see if I can plow forward here. I see a lot of people that want to go to Kanban because we can finish our work inside the sprint. So we can't finish it, so we should do Kanban. The WIP limits will finally allow us to say no to stakeholders. Well, that's a myth. The Kanban doesn't fix these deep-seated process problems. It only makes them visible. The biggest problem I end up running into is people mistake process for skill. They make the assumption that I can install a process and things will get better, but boy, if you suck at it, it doesn't help. These are orthogonal concerns, and if I look at skill, if I've got skill and I've optimized my process to fit my situation, things get pretty good. But if I optimize my process, but I don't improve skills and breaking work down into smaller parts, identifying smaller parts that are valuable, those are skills. And gosh, the good process with weak skills, the results are kind of indeterminate. If you've got skill, and this is an interesting problem, if you've got people that are good at what they do, no matter how crappy the process is, they seem to achieve some level of success. And if you're not good at either, the things get really iffy. This is the problem that I'm dealing with, or the problem that I see most of the time is we keep searching for a new process when we should be understanding a little bit more deeply what we're trying to do. Now, I'm a product person. I only say that because I've had some success throughout the 90s delivering products that were good enough to really help people, and that success has infected me. I jones for it most of the time. And I know that the way I really solve problems is to get out into the world, understand what people are doing, understand where the problems are, and figure out what we can build to solve those problems. Now, I don't know if I'm pushing solutions at my customers or they're pulling them from me. I don't quite get push and pull at times. I don't know if there's market demand or market pull for some of the things we're doing, but I know that if we can identify a need and solve it and get it to the market, there'll be demand soon enough. And so this is where I want to dig into the whole value thing. The big myth here is that value is predictable, but in fact we know it's hypothetical. I raced out last night to spend some money and buy, well, 2 things that cost $5. You can tell how late I was doing this last night. Joachim, I saw you go out for a smoke at almost midnight, and I didn't stop and say hi because I was working on this. But I bought these 2 things. I bought this lottery ticket, which cost $5. And I bought this calling card, which cost $5. And, well, the cost for both of these were the same. But that lottery ticket could win me $2,500 a week for life. That is huge value. I really want that. And this calling card, all I can get is in fact, if I flip over the back, I have no idea how much time I can get on the calling card. It's anywhere from a tenth of a cent to $5 a minute. I could get a 1 minute call, or I could get, I don't know what I'm going to get with that, but yeah, I know it's a certain that I'll get something out of it. When we decide to build things or buy things or spend money on things, there's hypothetical value. They're bets. It's aspirational value, and everything we put onto a backlog, for some reason, by virtue of going out in the world and seeing how bad my bets have been in the past, I'm hyper aware of that. And the biggest problem I run into is overstuffing our backlog, well, with bad bets. If some of our bets are a little bit more like gambling and some are a little bit more like investing, it's not like you should never gamble, it's just that you shouldn't always gamble. And when I look at the backlog, I can have large risky bets, or I can have small risky bets, and I can have large things that aren't bets. Now, I'm not going to go through this, but there are 10 warning signs that you have a gambling problem. Now, I've replaced gambling with adding new product features. And it's an inability to check this with your stakeholders. If they have an inability to stop or reduce adding features, I'll pluck a couple more. It's needing to add new product features to improve your mood, escape problems, or back losses. Emotional symptoms of withdrawal when you stop or reduce adding new product features, and denial of feature adding, or a problem lying to friends or family about your behavior, and then frequent mood changes. These are all things, and I see these a lot in executives. Then we start getting the guidance, well, we should add the ones that have the largest return on investment. And, well, return on investment is a lagging indicator. We know that we can't measure return on investment. Let's see how I'm doing on time here. I'm actually doing a little bit better than I thought. Do So when it comes to return on investment, I've got 2 words for you. Do people know these words? So let's, for those who don't, the Underpants Gnomes were reoccurring characters in South Park. They sneak into night and steal your underwear, but, well, let's just
Anybody
do
know
it.
anything about corporations? I think my mom is a corporation. Yeah, that makes sense. You guys! Well, how about we just say corporate should be stopped? How do we stretch that into 5 minutes? You're taking my underpants! Will you stop with the underpants, Gnome Streak? We have to work here. What the hell? Where I began. That's my last pair of underpants! Shh, don't scare him. Hey there, little guy. Bad. Cartman? Why? Why do you always have to hit stuff with a stick? Well, look at him. He's out, look at him. Dude, why are you taking Tweak's underpants? Yeah, look what you're doing to this poor kid.
Stealing underpants, big business.
Business? Wait, do you know anything about business?
Sure, that's what gnomes do.
Show us.
Okay, follow me. Not much longer now. Follow me. This is where all our work is done.
So what are you going to do with all these underpants that you steal?
Collecting underpants is just phase 1. Phase 1, collect underpants.
So what's phase 2?
Hey, what's phase 2? Phase 1, we collect underpants. Yeah, but what about phase 2? Well, phase 3 is profit. Get it?
I don't get it.
You see, phase 1, collect underpants. Phase 2, phase 3, profit.
I get it. No, you don't. Do you guys know anything about corporations?
You bet we do. Us gnomes are geniuses at corporations. Time to go to work. Work's done.
So, I spend my consulting career saying, yeah, but what about phase 2? And that's it. It's as hard as it gets. But if you're going to get value out of something or profit, you've got to form some kind of hypothesis about what that value is. Now, many people have seen me go through this model, but for those who haven't, I'm going to breeze through it really quick, but I just need to introduce the vocabulary, but there's other important things here. So there is a simple mental model I keep in my head for identifying and measuring value. We have to start with the world now, and we have to imagine the world later. That's where the value is, later. And we have to look in the world now and find pain or problems or things we need to solve. And if we look hard enough and we do some deliberate thinking and ideally design kind of thinking, we end up with some good ideas. And those good ideas might be products or features, or we might call them requirements, but at some point in time we will deliver those. And it's later that matters. It's later that we hope that some people are happy, and what happens doesn't always happen the way we expect it. Some people aren't that happy, and you can't please everyone. Someone's not going to be happy. It's everything between that idea and that delivery, that's output. And for the most part, most Kanban boards are built around that cycle. There's nothing that looks left and nothing that looks right. And that's a problem. If the two words I'm using for what happens at the end are outcome, the changes I can see shortly after delivery. I deliver a feature and I see people behave different. Within, for web-based applications, within hours I can see benefits of features. Within days I can see it. But if the benefits I'm striving for are increased brand recognition or customer satisfaction, well, that value only comes after multiple deliveries and lots of different products and time. So that's difficult to measure and takes a long time. Well, that's really annoying, but that's reality. Our job is to minimize the amount of output. We're not trying to increase the amount we can get through. So throughout the 90s, before I really discovered Agile, I learned that if you get good at delivering shit faster, you just get a lot of shit. And the problem was trying to figure out not build. So I see so many people saying, hey, we're delivering a ton of value, but they measure on exit of the Kanban board, and that's where things can go really right or really wrong, that right edge of the Kanban board. So what I've learned, or what I end up doing and telling people is, in lean thinking, we use the word Gemba a lot. And I've been to Japan, and they use the word Gemba, and that refers to the factory floor. That refers to where things are happening. But that's not where value is happening. That's where value is being created. If you want to know where the opportunities are for creating value and whether you got it, Gemba is somewhere else. It's where people work. And it's good to leverage Woody Allen here. I quickly dredged through my hard drive and found pictures from a really long time ago of me going out and visiting stock traders and watching people work. The very important thing about this, these are a group of stock portfolio managers, and they're working on trying to get trading going, and their analytics engine has failed. The most important thing about this picture is that it is dark outside, and this is San Francisco, which means I got up at 4 freaking a.m. in the morning to go to Gemba, to watch these guys work. And that's where you see problems. It's where stock traders work, where people who sell paint work, and that's the advice I end up giving people most of the time. We have to start thinking of value from the consumer's, the user's perspective. And value comes from them using something. If we're going to make a product, we have to start to envision that value. And I'm famous for this story mapping thing, which is frankly the simplest darn technique you could imagine. I'm purposely trying to not make it complicated, and it's every time I try and write it down, it starts getting more complicated, but it starts by identifying people and then mapping their use. And I just, well, to get value, people have to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and I'll do that left to right, and I can think of the big things they need to do, and then I start thinking about what we could build or what my options are for building something, and, well, it starts to take on this two-dimensional shape. And then, well, it gets a little long, so I'll use these things like, I'll use activities to sort of organize those, so I can look at the big activities, because sometimes I can re-rationalize the steps or the kinds of things they do in activities. I spend a lot of time thinking about the way people use it. And I'll just play just a short amount of this video. The company I work with in Brazil called Globo. A few of you, if you've seen tutorials from me, I've shown this video a lot. It's the only customer that took the time to actually film what they were doing. And they, well, they're a company that does television stations, radio stations, and newspapers, and, well, they're a media company, so they had to make a montage to show anything. And you can see them, well, thinking this product through, left to right first, finding some way to organize it, and then starting to consider their options, starting to consider all the possible things they could build to increase value or make this product better. But always with that backbone in mind of what people have to do to get value. They're trying to improve an existing website, and they're looking back at it and saying, it's crap here, it's crap there, and they keep rethinking this story. I'm going to bump forward a little bit. It's once you've got some real understanding of all the possible things you could do that we need to identify a viable product release. What is the chunk or the thing that I could give people? Now, the word viable gets used a lot, and I leverage this definition for viable. It's valuable to the people paying for the software to be built, and that's, if I'm in a commercial product company, it's valuable to my company because I'll sell it and make a lot of money. It's usable by the people who have to use it, and usable may mean it's got value for them if they buy it, and it's desirable to them if I'm in a commercial environment where I've got competitors with cool solutions. And the really interesting and tough one sometimes is it's feasible to build given the time and materials we've got. That's a viable product. So the reason I end up using these maps is because they allow me to deal with both concerns at the same time. This is a long map built by 3 teams to talk about, well, they're rebuilding their underlying content management system, also at Globo, and that long left to right flow is their stream of value. And all those things are the things they could do. In fact, they're the things they believe that are their requirements, that they have to do all those things. And on coming to them after they built this, they said, we've got a big problem. It's going to take us a year plus to build all these stuff, but our CEO wants it out in the next 4 months. And I said, well, what for? Well, Brazilian elections are in 4 months, and we want to go live with these new interactive features, and we really want to make a splash in the market. We ultimately will get more viewers, more money for doing this. I said, do you need all this stuff to go live? If that's a viable product, what is that? And I said, well, I guess we don't need all this stuff. And we grabbed the tape lines out, and we started slicing this thing up. That first release is a minimal viable product. So there's a difference between a viable product and a minimal viable product. And to make something viable, you have to be, well, I'll put the definition up here. It is the smallest viable product for a target market. And that means I have, market sounds like it's a big deal, but it just means a group of people using it for a particular purpose. The way Globo was able to get to a smaller target market was to say, we're just going to focus on news users during Brazilian elections, and that's a smaller subset of people, it's a smaller subset of uses, and instead of a boil the ocean product plan, we'll just have this smaller product plan. The problem with looking at work in progress at this feature and release level is that it's an executive level. It's often outside, the biggest work in progress we bite off is often outside of our control. We often think that our job is to get products and features built, and well, we can use that MVP thing to minimize them. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is this: how do we break down those products? And I want to give you the next lesson learned, but I'll talk about experiments in just a minute. But it's these target markets that matter. And by target markets, I mean the users and choosers, the people who make a buying decision about products, the people who use them. And well, if you've got too much to build, the problem isn't prioritizing which things to build. Really, the problem is that you're shooting at too big of a target. It's reducing the size of your target market, and the sad part is this is often business strategy. And that's where the big work in progress, that's where the big problem with leading out comes from in most organizations that I'm working with. It's all work in progress. It's not the stuff on our Kanban board. It's not the stuff in our release plan. It's the stuff in our business strategy that's weighing us down much of the time. If I go one step deeper, the most interesting, exciting-ish thing that's starting to happen is everybody's buzzing about lean startup. I'm allergic to all buzz at times, but it's important. It's important because for the first time, it defines the boundaries outside the left and right side of this thing. The lean startup loop is, well, it has build at the top, often as it's drawn, and that's what agile and a lot of implementations of Kanban focus on. But then it talks about measure. Well, measure happens past the right edge of the board. If I have to build it and drop it into the world, I have to measure outcomes and ultimately impact. And from measuring, I learn about the world as it is today, and then I can start that loop over again. Now, I can learn about the world today and better understand the problems to solve, and I can make changes with what to build. That's the cycle time measured in lean startup. And to be annoying, Eric Ries redefined the term MVP. So here's your second definition of MVP. The product management community defined it as a minimal viable product, but we know that that's a hypothesis. And Eric intelligently said, well, it is a hypothesis. So what we need are small experiments that allow us to knock the risk out of those things, to turn them from hypothesis into something we're confident in spending our money on. So Eric Ries's minimal viable product is actually a minimal viable experiment. It's the smallest thing we could do to be certain we're doing the right thing. And it's this MVP loop, and it's doing enough of these small experiments that eventually leads to a product that we can release. And it's this release that we can then measure, and it's the release that ultimately leads to profit. So with everything we do, every pass through the cycle, we have an opportunity to earn or learn. But we better be doing one of those two things. Have people seen this Nordstrom Innovation Lab video at all? So I'm not going to show the whole thing, but first off, I want you to all realize you're witnessing a momentous occasion. I'm about to finish a talk on time. Say it again. I started on time. Yeah, that's probably why. So I'm going to play just a little bit of this just to get the hot spots here. But one of the things the Nordstrom Innovation Lab does, you can watch the whole video online, is that, well, they do experiments. And this particular experiment, which is cool to see online, is them showing up actually in a Nordstrom department store to build an application and setting up a development environment right there on the retail floor, setting up computers, and they're building a simple iPad application that replaces a mirror where I buy glasses, because the problem is, well, I wear glasses, and they hand me glasses, I try them on, I go, well, that's interesting, but I can't see without my glasses. So I'd love to know what I look like in these things, but I can take a picture of myself in them, and I can compare things, and I can send them to people. That's a cool idea. Someone had the idea, and they needed to explore it. They needed to validate that concept. They needed some validated learning. They spent 5 days in the shop, and they kept iterating this application over and over.
Also,
this is the tail end.
Pictures larger if you want to just better view of one frame. You can flip the camera view as well. Face it forward so the salesperson can take a picture of it like this, or you can flip the camera like so. Take a picture of yourself facing forward. And then at the end of it all, we have a button called New Customer, which just erases all of the images and allows the salesperson to start with a new customer.
We're just trying to put the final touches on the app. Tel talked to a lot of users, and they said that when we went into the compare view, it was unclear where the pictures were coming from and which picture was which, so the animation here is trying to solve that problem, make it a little more clear what's going on. One of the challenges with software is when you're done, right? And I think the answer is really, it depends on how much time you have. At least the most important things got done. So this was time boxed to a week, and we did a week's worth of work, and it seems like what we have now is something that makes customers happy and addresses the main problems, and something that we can track, we have metrics on. So I think we're going to call that a day.
The application has developed so far.
It's going to stop there. So, sorry. It's hard to pin it down to where I wanted to stop before she got halfway through her sentence. But the important thing was the hints in Jeremy's language about what they're talking about. We've got metrics. We built this feature to solve this problem. If anybody's watched the video, they talk about finding a problem with polarization on lenses and iPad screens that they couldn't have possibly predicted. They couldn't have possibly predicted that people would be confused about which picture was which when they did that. They did a lot of validated learning, from large concept to small micro thing. And I actually was at Nordstrom the last 2 weeks, and I've seen where they've come with this. And at the end of this, you know, they talk about this as if this is an application we can leave behind. The truth is, it wasn't. It was validated learning, but they have gone through the work to turn it into a production product that is rolling out across Nordstrom. The interesting thing was that, did you notice they use an awful lot of lean thinking there, but my God, they've gone all the way back from Kanban back to time boxes. Now, to me, this completed a weird loop in my head, from Carl telling me in 2007 that we're not using time boxes, to these guys saying that if we're going to do validated learning, you can do this almost forever, and we've got enough. This is enough that we know, where we're confident that we can get the value, so we're going to go big. And so the question is, to a pure lean person, is that, are they doing it wrong? Or is this the new right? I don't know. And I don't much care, frankly. Revisiting these points, just splashing that slide back, is the cool thing to me is that we're finally starting to talk about, really talk about value, and not just give it lip service, but we're building learning cycles to validate we're doing enough research and learning to form hypothesis. We're creating backlogs using story maps or other kinds of things that allow us to imagine use and give us something to validate or measure when things are done. And if there's one thing I'd like you guys to do, you know, if you go back to doing this, is to look at the process you've got and figure out what you're doing beyond the edges of that board. And that's it. She just gave me the one, which means I have time for one question maybe. But anyway, or it's time for lunch. Thank you very much.